evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Pleased to be joined by my NSMA colleague, Dom Amori. Dom, welcome to the big show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Scott. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was great meeting you in Greensboro, and I'm glad we have an opportunity to do a show tonight. So, why don't you let the audience know a little bit about Dom?
Well, I've been spent my whole career in Connecticut, which is where I was born and raised and went to school. So I'm kind of a Connecticut homeboy. Right now, I've been at the Hartford Courant for 37 years. I've been their columnist the last 5, and
Wow.
I get around. Mostly it's all Connecticut now, but in the past, I was our Giants beat writer. I was our Yankees beat writer when we did those kinds of things at the Courant, and then the Yukon men's beat writer, and of course now I do a little bit of everything like a columnist generally does. So that's my story in a nutshell.
No problem. One of my best memories being in Hartford was actually when I went to the Hartford Civic Center, but I went into
Mhm.
the mall and
Yeah,
didn't even realize that they had an arena in it.
yeah.
And it
Well,
was
the mall's long gone, but the arena's still there.
oh, no kidding. I wonder how they even did that. But
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I went in there and I saw what do you call it, a Disney event. Was it Disney? I don't know if it was
Mm-hmm.
Disney on Ice
Was
or
down nice. Yeah, sure.
I don't know if it was Disney on Ice or I don't remember what it was. It was an ice event and it was
Yeah.
just unbelievable. Walking into a mall, all of a sudden I see it. Yeah, oh, check this out. I bought tickets to go in there, and I know it'll come back to me. I don't know if it was Disney on Ice or one of those things. Name a couple of other events that were on ice. Help me out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? It's not dissimilar to the Mohegan Sun Arena, which is just in a casino, and then there's the arena there. And it's probably wasn't much different than what today a lot of convention centers are.
Right.
They might have an arena attached to them. So,
Right.
in a sense, it was ahead of its time. But there, yeah, there was the big jewelry store in there. I remember Lux Bond, Green and Stevens, and there were a couple of other big. There's a big department store that was G Fox that was big in Hartford at the time, and that's what they built the Civic Center, kind of adjacent to all those stores and connected them, and it's what they used to derisively call in the NHL the mall when the Hartford Whalers played there.
There you go. I remember that. Geez, the ice volleys. Thank you. I knew it was that. All right, there you go. Thanks, Tom. You really led me good, man. So
There,
the 50th anniversary of the ice volleys has got me in there, and I'll never forget going out there and seeing Gordie Howe and all the banners that was there. So I knew I
there you
can't go
go.
on an entire show without thinking this is going to get past me. And thank you very much, Tom. You're off to an awesome start, brother. Great stuff.
It's what I
Oh,
do. Okay.
great stuff. Oh my God. The Ice Files, the 50th anniversary of the show. And I got in there. That was pretty cool. A
Yeah.
mall inside of an arena. Oh my gosh. I'll never forget that. So, all right. Anyways, I just say, listen, I got a Connecticut guy. Can you actually blame me for being here? I went to Springfield, Massachusetts, and went to the Basketball Hall of Fame over there. And then I know Hartford is right across the road from there. So
Yeah, yeah.
it
Which
was
is
just,
also in a mall, by the way.
oh,
Right?
well, it wasn't back when I went.
Yeah. Okay.
But unreal, all this other stuff. So, all right, well, let's talk about it. I guess we could go a lot of different ways, but we're going to start off with the Yukon women. They're seeded number 2 in the
Yeah.
NCAA tournament. I actually hope they make it to Tampa so they can
Yeah.
make it to the women's Final Four because I would certainly love to see Gino Auriemma getting that side of this guy's head. But how do you like the Yukon women's chances of actually being able to make it all the way to the Final Four?
Well, they've been to the Final Four all but one of the last 16 years. And I would be surprised. Well, they're gonna have to get by USC and Juju Watkins to get
Right.
there. It'll be no easy task, but they did that last year. The teams played in Hartford in December, and USC got off to a big lead, but then UConn really dominated the second half and very nearly won it. UConn is healthier now; they have all their pieces intact, so I think they're better equipped to play Juju and play USC.
Right.
It's the deepest, healthiest, most talented team that UConn has had the last 4 or 5 years.
Really.
I think they have all the pieces that they need to get there. Things always have to break right, but on balance, I like their chances of getting to the Final Four, and I'll tell you what, I like their chances of winning it more than I have in quite a while too.
Amazingly enough, I'm really pulling for them to get there because I'd like to see UConn actually win it all. I really will. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's that Gino Uriema thing to know that I can watch a
Well,
guy like this.
if they win it all, then maybe he goes off into the sunset with number
Right.
12. For me, it would be kind of a shame. I mean, even for people who don't like UConn, and there are plenty of those out there, but to see Paige Becker's career end without a championship would be it'd feel kind of incomplete. So in a sense, you'd like to see her get one before she goes, and some of the other stars out there have more time to do it. So, it'd be there'd be kind of some poetic justice to Paige Becker's going out with a championship.
Well, you always like to see great players go out with a title,
Yeah.
knowing that WNBA is in the rearview mirror, about to come to the front of the vehicle as well, no doubt about it. But yeah, Gino Uriema, I know I've always associated him back in the early days when women's basketball was starting out, and the woman that comes to my mind will always be Pat Summitt and the rivalry that they always had between Pat Summitt and Gino Uriema. They're the pioneers of women's basketball. Everybody else steps in line, and now you have parity.
Yeah. Well, you've got some parity, but you still have really a huge drop off between the top 7 or 8 teams and the rest. And it would be very surprising if any team that's not seeded first or second gets to the Final Four, except maybe Notre Dame, which is seeded third. But for the most part, you don't get 7 seeds, 8 seeds, 12 seeds making deep, deep runs in the women's tournament. You don't have that much parity yet. And that's what they need to really to generate the same excitement that the men's tournament does.
Great comparison. Thank you. Let's talk about the UConn men, on the other hand. Danny Hurley's looking for a three-peat. He's going to have a tough task, though, with Florida Gators. Obviously, one of the top teams in the country. A lot of people are predicting the Gators to win it, but Danny Hurley turned down a job at the LA Lakers to take a shot at the three-peat. What are your thoughts about UConn men's chances?
Well, I think, as you pointed out, they're a long shot. They're going to be an 8. Now, UConn did go and win the whole thing as a 7 10 years ago. Right. So it's been done. There's some history there. The bad news is they've got to play Florida in the second round.
Right.
The good news is you would have to play a team like that eventually anyway. So if they ever did beat Florida, then what? Then the sky would be the limit. So, for them, the season's probably going to come down to that second round game. That's if they beat Oklahoma, which is not going to be easy either. But I think they are going to have a very, they're not as good as the last couple of years. So this is those were 2 of the top teams in recent decades. Danny did a great job of putting those teams together.
Right.
This roster is a little more flawed than those rosters. They're missing some important pieces and important elements, and I think that's going to ultimately be their downfall. And if it comes against Florida, you tip your hat and you move on. I mean, a lot. I saw a thing the other day where only Duke and UConn have won back-to-back championships and gone back to the tournament the third year. The other repeat winners, since Wooden, of course, didn't even go back, because that's how hard it is to sustain something like that. So, I said, for them to win it, the one thing I will say, though, is this: I don't think anybody out there is thinking, boy, that's great, we get to play UConn, because of their reputation. And I don't think that the rest of the country is going to be secure in the knowledge that UConn's done until they're done.
That's good.
Florida to do that.
That's a good comparison. It kind of reminds me of what you said right now. When Brigham Young won their only national championship and they beat it against a very mediocre Michigan team.
Yeah.
That's really what they did. But here's the thing about BYU. They won it because they had the Michigan Wolverines and they beat the Wolverines. How many people in this day and age, Tom, will really remember what the Wolverines record was when Brigham Young won the whole thing?
They were like only just over 500 that year, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they were 6-5. Yeah,
Right.
I remember that very well. That was the Ty Detmer year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's why.
I remember
Oh,
that.
GMTA. Okay, great minds think alike, Tom. Just,
Yeah, yeah.
So Rhea Zagerman in the chat room. How are you? A long time. It's been a little while, but glad to have you in there, Rhea. Thank you very much for being on the show tonight with Tom and I. Scott Morgan, Rock Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Pleased to be joined by my colleague in the Hartford area, Tom Amore. Have a great show here planned. So yeah, Ty Detmer was definitely on that team with Brigham Young, and the thing is it's like yesterday. So I think actually UConn men's basketball team is really on house money,
Yeah,
knowing the
yeah,
draw that they have.
yeah, exactly. They're on house money, and Danny's on house money for now, and
I think so. Gotta lose
it's a lot of money. Let me tell you.
Yeah, he compensated pretty well, but well, Danny
That's
Hurley's
what I
done a
mean. Yeah,
really dynamite job to
yeah.
do what he's done out there.
There's no denying it that he is. Of course, he's likely to tell you himself, but he is he is the hottest name in coaching right now. Although Rick Pitino has kind of stolen his thunder a little bit.
Well, think about it. He's won multiple titles. Calhoun did it with
Yeah,
UConn, so it's like not like UConn doesn't have a history of producing good
no,
coaches.
yeah, that's why
And
he
Rick
came.
Pitino, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that's why Hurley came here because of that history. And yeah, as I think you're about to say, Rick Pitino's done this with a lot of different teams, which is what's
Exactly
remarkable.
what he has.
Yeah, which is remarkable for him.
Trying to guard his defense down, it's like trying to guard a trap for an entire game. It's
Yeah,
impossible. It
yeah.
really is. So I'm with you all the way. You're on a roll. So let's say in a basketball team again. You have another team out there, Yale, the NCAA tournament.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about what the Yale's chances are, just for them to get in there out the Ivy League. I think it's pretty cool.
I'll tell you what, I called Yale today America's favorite underdog
Yeah.
because they've been in the tournament now 5 times since 2016, and they haven't just scared teams; they've pulled off a couple of big upsets in the tournament. You know, they beat Baylor that year in
Right.
2016, and really had Duke on the ropes in the second round and lost. And then last year they stunned Auburn, beat obviously Bruce Pearl when they were a 4 seed. Now they've got Texas A&M, and
Really?
the Yale, the Ivy League is much better basketball than people think. I think it's not a high major, it's not a power conference, but it might be the best of the rest. Those teams are very good, and we've seen Cornell not too long ago go to the Sweet 16. We've seen Harvard win some games, and of course Princeton back in the day. Ivy League teams, but this Yale team is very good. And they lost Danny Wolf, Michigan, through the portal, 7-1, who could be a lottery pick. If he stayed at Yale with what they have now, they might be an at-large caliber team, or even a ranked team. So this is a very good Yale team, and I'm sure that with what they've done, nobody's going to take them for granted. But if they do, if anybody takes them lightly, they could be in for a shock, because so Yale, as I said, they're kind of America's favorite underdogs.
Well, you're gonna mention that. Why don't we go back to 1979 when Pennsylvania shocked everybody on the planet until Michigan State rolled them with Irvin Johnson. I mean,
yeah,
this league has a history of doing stuff like that in Pennsylvania. Even though they got hammered by Michigan, it doesn't really matter. They got to the Final Four, so that validates everything you just said. So how can you not pull for Yale? So with that said, you talked about Danny Wolf and Michigan basketball. How do you like the Wolverines' chances in this tournament?
Well, they're a hot team. They have a coach that got to the Final Four with Florida Atlantic, and I said they're bolstered by Danny Wolf. I mean, so yeah, they would probably be. I would think they would be one of the trendy picks going into this tournament.
You have they're a 5 seed against a 12, win the Big Ten tournament. It doesn't matter. Just get in there, and who knows what can happen. How many times we've seen lower seeds do well. So as we continue this conversation, what we're going to do is go to a quick station break. Dom and I have a lot more to talk about. Glad to be joined by Dom Amore, great guy. got to know him well over at NSMA, National Sports Media Association. We're talking college basketball tonight and a whole lot more about Connecticut sports. Take it away, Candy.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button and that means you have not subscribed to us. I honestly don't know why you haven't yet, but please do so. Share us with all your friends and family. You never know what we're going to be talking about, so check us out. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how the industry has changed over the course of that time. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is also a link to our merchandise store and a plethora of great content, including the writings of Scott and a couple of okay pictures, if I do say so myself. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you catch your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights and Thursday nights on the Sports Exchange and Fire Up. You never know what topics we're going to be talking about. And then Thursday nights, we also, on our second edition of Sports Exchange, we talk hockey. And then we throw in a Motor City Madmouth one-on-one show. You never know when that's going to pop in. So stay tuned and watch to find out. If you ever want to be a guest, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to sponsor or advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Back to the program.
Well done, Candy. There you go, Dom. I wrote a book, and you've been in the business. Who knows if you've ever written a book or you plan to. Do you ever plan to write a book at some point?
Yeah, I did. I had a book in 2018, a history book about the first 20 years of the Yankees. And I have a book coming out in a couple of months that Jim Calhoun and I worked on together about his relationships with various players that he coached while at UConn and other places. So it's something, especially as I get older and maybe think about the day when I hang up my newspaper cred, that maybe I go and write some books in my spare time.
Well, why don't you do this? When that book comes out, please contact me and I will bring you on this show. And you can promote it.
We'll do. Bring Jim Calhoun on there too, if the Floridians can understand him.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you can get you and I and Jim Calhoun on the show, I'd love that if you can work on it.
Yeah, he's known to say yes to these things, so maybe we could do that.
Yeah, we'll bring him on the Motor City Madmouth show, Scott, Don, and Jim Calhoun. That's something we should plan. Hey, Joshua Dorr, welcome. Look at this guy. He's one of my friends of the show. Glad to have you on tonight. So, yeah, we do it. Bring a return visit to the Motor City Madmouth show with you and I and Jim. That'd be great stuff. So, we'll stand the Connecticut team. Dom, Jim Mora, football program. How do you think it's progressing?
He's done a whale of a job in a place where nobody, and I mean nobody, thought it was possible to win anything. This program was about as dormant and dead in the water as you can get when he took over. And he came in with a lot of energy. He came in believing he could get something done. And they've kind of found their niche as an independent, as a team that kind of positioned between the group of five and the power five. I think they kind of started to bridge that gap with some very competitive games against three ACC teams this year, and ultimately beating, albeit a North Carolina team that wasn't excited about being at the Fenway Bowl, but they did beat them. They're winning games they're supposed to win. A couple of years ago, they were getting absolutely smoked by teams like Fresno State and Middle Tennessee State and teams like that and Liberty, etc. And now they're beating teams like that, and they're giving some ACC teams a run for their money. So, I think the ultimate goal for UConn is to try to get in a power conference so that they can, get a piece of that football money, which would help not only their football, but help their basketball programs as well. That's not necessarily on the horizon, but it's always kind of in the minds of people in Connecticut. But, I think what Jim Mora has done is he's brought credibility and stability to UConn football. They're somewhat relevant in football again, and that's something that no one thought was possible just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but do you think he'll at some point join a conference? He doesn't have to take a low end conference, but like a middle of the road, or you think it's either Power Five or nothing?
Well, I think for UConn, if they're not going to be in the Power Five, they might as well stay where they are.
Okay.
Stay in the
That's
Big
fair.
East in basketball. So I think I think, but obviously either the ACC or perhaps some amalgamation of the ACC and the Big East, which would basically become the original Big East again, would be the best case scenario for football for UConn. To be, UConn signed up to play in a Big East football conference that included Boston College, Syracuse,
Right.
Pittsburgh, Miami, etc. And that, to me, that was a good conference and would still be a good conference. I think it would draw some TV money today. It split up. Everybody went their separate ways. But I think ultimately, you obviously it's been on again, off again with the Big 12. The Big 12 commissioner wants UConn because they want UConn basketball. The presidents aren't so convinced. The ACC, there's been some chatter about it, but nothing's really come of that yet. But it's going to depend on what happens to the ACC. If teams start to leave there, UConn's going to be the best available option probably. So I do think that eventually UConn will end up in one of those conferences. Just not going to happen tomorrow.
I can see UConn being a good fit for the ACC. You talk about the progression that UConn's football program has had. Reminds me a lot of Florida Atlantic University and Howard Schnellenberger ended up taking a lot of those mismatch games to build that program from the ground up, and look what it's becoming now. Much better. You get the right coach in there, and it's a gold mine with talent in South Florida. So I definitely see the comparison. But Jim Mora, the thing that stands out with him above a lot of them, been there, done that with the NFL, a lot of the bigger programs. Now he's a pipeline to the NFL. And I know in my mind, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way, that if you've been in the NFL, he's probably telling us that I've been there, I can line you up with somebody got to play hard, despite NIL and transfer portal.
Very sure, very true. I think this is part of what North Carolina's after with the Belichick hire is he's not he doesn't wring his hands and clutch pearls about NIL and the transfer portal and all of that because he was in the NFL and that's how you build teams.
Right.
He could bring in a whole bunch of new guys every year and mold a team in a couple of months. Right. He can do that. If it's about money, he'll get the money and knows how to distribute it effectively. If it's about getting experienced players, one of the big disadvantages UConn has is that their stadium is located 23 miles away from campus. But for a transfer who just wants to get on the field and play and have a chance to go to the NFL, particularly a quarterback, that doesn't matter to him.
Right.
So he's been able to get players to, he's done really well in the transfer portal. I think he will again. And I think he's still developing some players underneath those veterans. But, he's a guy that, he, as an NFL coach, he's adaptable to whatever the college game throws his way, as I'm sure Bill Belichick is. And, he's been very successful. He was better at UCLA than he got credit for. And at UConn, he's done it. Just a question of how long he wants to stay at UConn, or does he want to maybe go? If UConn doesn't get in a conference, does he want to go to a power conference and try to win there? But I think he's proven that UConn can win in football. And if he does move on at some point, they're going to be able to get a really good coach.
Well, think about it. Miami Hurricanes don't have an on-campus stadium. They play at Hard Rock Stadium. So.
Well, hey, UCLA plays at Pasadena. You ever try to make that
there you go. You just had two great examples there.
So that should not be a deal breaker.
No, I don't think so either. Bill Belichick, you mentioned him. How do you think he's going to do at North Carolina?
Well, I think if he's really engaged in doing well, he's going to do well. You always worry about, I worried about Jim Mora coming to UConn that he would treat it like a retirement job and just kind of mail it in. It's hard to imagine Bill Belichick doing that, because I think he's probably got a little bit of an edge over A, the way things ended in New England, and B, not getting another job right away with his resume. So I think he's going to be engaged in this job, even though he's 73. And I think he's going to enjoy it, at least at the outset. And I think he's going to do well. I'm sure that sent some shockwaves through that conference that they're going to have to go and find a way to beat him. Because, again, he's a guy that could take the roster he has and outcoach you and win it.
Right.
And he starts moving linebackers around. Some of these college quarterbacks aren't going to know what the hell hit him or where it's coming from.
Right. Great points. Talk about the Boston Celtics. How do you like their chances to repeat? That once upon a time they did play their games in Hartford too.
They did play their games in Hartford, and I have a feeling that when they get a new owner, they're going to try to steal our WNBA team and move them to Boston. But they haven't shown any signs of let up. They seem to be even developing more weapons. So I don't know who's going to beat them in the East. Maybe Oklahoma City is ready. If they meet in the finals, is ready to make a run at it. That's possible. But Cleveland obviously has had a really good team, and they've given them a battle. But you think how good the Knicks are, and the Celtics have just clobbered them every time they've played. So I've got to like the Celtics' chances of certainly getting back to the finals, and then once they're there, they know what to do.
You feel that Jason Tatum is the most underrated player in basketball, and here's why I ask you that question. Steve Kerr did not give him many minutes during the Olympics, and you can rest assured that Jason Tatum is mad because he didn't feel he got the minutes. So anytime you have a player like that who goes on the Olympics, he didn't get all the time. He's already got a championship ring, but my goodness, I could have done real well here. So he has an edge, and that's what you want. This kid does not get in any trouble. He's just a hard-nosed player. He's worth every dime that the Celtics are paying him, and he has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, no, he's performed. He's delivered the goods, and I think that they're going to be, you're going to have to wrest the title out of their cold, dead hands. I think they're going to be very tough to. They're not going to give it up easily if they do. But Oklahoma City, they've got great players. A really good young coach, and they weren't quite ready for it last year. I think maybe this year they might be ready to make that run, and I think it would be a great final, Oklahoma City against Boston.
But I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of anybody. I'm a writer just like you. I try not to be a fan of anybody because it's our job to report the news. But if I was an admirer, remember what I'm saying, admirer, okay, of somebody, Jason Tatum would certainly get my thumbs up all the way. This guy, to me, could play in any era of basketball.
Yeah, you wouldn't be alone at that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's a remarkable player, and I hope he gets as many rings as he can. Nobody will get as many as Bill Russell, but Jason Tatum and the job that Joe Mazzulla has done to put him in a position to win, as well as what Brad Stevens has done in Boston, in a way to keep them competitive. Boston just simply gets it right. Yeah. You talked about the Connecticut Sun. Let's talk about the popularity of the Connecticut Sun and the WNBA presence there.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing because the Connecticut Sun were an extremely valuable asset to that league when the league was struggling. They were having trouble getting any kind of a toehold anywhere. The Orlando franchise moved to Connecticut. And because Connecticut had been such a hotbed for women's basketball, because of the aforementioned UConn program, they were the first WNBA team to turn a profit on their own in 2010. And they've been a franchise that, not connected to a WNBA, to an NBA franchise. Right. They've been a standalone W franchise, and they've been very successful. And they have a hard time getting free agents to come there because of where they play, but they draft smartly and they make good trades and they lock up some really good players, and they've had really good coaches. But I think that I fear that the league is now outgrown Connecticut. Now that the league is popular, they don't necessarily need to be in a women's basketball hotbed. They want to be in big cities and big markets. And here in Connecticut, we lived through it with the Whalers way back when. Right. I'm probably one of the last people around who covered the Whalers at one time. You wonder, and people in Connecticut are almost resigned to the idea that Boston is going to eventually get the Sun away from here, because I think the WNBA, to grow and to get that big TV money, needs to be in big markets, and I think they need to be in Boston. I know there could be an expansion team in Boston. It would be a hell of a rivalry with
Right.
Boston, Connecticut, and New York. But I don't think the WNBA is necessarily thinking that way. I think they'd like to expand into 2 bigger cities elsewhere and get Connecticut in Boston. They played a game there last year. It was sold out. This year they're playing the Caitlin Clark game there, which is
Right.
certainly probably sold out already. It seems like just a matter of time before they migrate there. But they've been a very successful franchise in Connecticut, and the WNBA owes a debt for what Connecticut Sun did for that league at a time when they weren't very successful anywhere else.
Couldn't agree more. Hope they get one
Mm.
in Boston to have a rivalry, but there's perception and there's reality, and I
Yeah.
think you're probably on target with that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the New England Patriots' recent hire of Mike Vrabel. How do you like the hire?
Well, you know the old principle, Scott. You don't want to be the guy that follows a legend. You want to be the guy that follows the guy who follows the legend, right? That's what you want to be.
Right.
We've seen how, in fact, we just saw today, Iona, you didn't want to be the guy following Patino, and so he's gone already. So, I guess, I guess Mayo just never had a chance. Because,
It's true.
even though Belichick was 4-13 his last year, he just never had a chance. I think Vrabel, with his New England, with his Patriots pedigree, his Patriots ties, I think he was probably the apple of their eye all along, and maybe they never really thought. Maybe they were just kind of waiting for him to become available. But he has been around a bit, and he's had some ups and downs. And sometimes, when you recycle somebody like this, it doesn't work out. Very often when you bring back a former player to coach your team, it doesn't work out, right? I mean, Bart Starr and Forrest Gregg never really got over the top when they went to Green Bay. So who's to say? He played for Belichick. He was a big star, very popular player with New England. That doesn't mean he's going to be a great coach there. But they've got some work to do. They seem to have the quarterback, or at least they believe they do. We're going to see what May looks like in his second year. But they've got a long way to go to get back up to the top, and they have a division that has a still young quarterback that in Buffalo. That it's not going to be as easy to get on top of that division the way they did back in the day. But I think after what we've seen the last couple of years, it can't be much worse. Maybe he's the answer, but you have to be aware that there are certainly reasons and some history that might suggest otherwise.
Well, let's face the reality. Jared Mayo had a clause, I believe, in his contract that stated he had to be the successor, so you had everything to gain, nothing to lose. You're going to get a good pick anyway because the team wasn't very good last year.
Yeah.
And subsequently bring in Vrabel. So you have a clause in your contract, 2 reasons. 1, he was a successor. 2, there was no Rooney rule necessary because he fulfilled the minority requirement.
Right.
It didn't work out. And dial it up a year later, and you got Mike Vrabel. I think we brought Josh Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I do hope that Jared Mayo gets another chance somewhere where he maybe gets a real chance to do it. I think he obviously is a good young coach for them to think as highly of him as they did, to give him that successor clause. So I would hope that he gets a fuller opportunity somewhere else.
I hope so too. You always want to make sure that he does get an opportunity, but I think Josh Daniels is going to really do a good job with the Patriots. He has a track record for developing quarterbacks. Let's not forget Tom Brady did pretty well with him.
Yeah.
And I think Mac Jones was on the right track before everything went south after that. What happened? Yeah. I don't think that the failure, to me, of Mac Jones is really the fact that Josh Daniels ended up getting a head coaching job. We all know what took place there. So Tom Brady, Jared Mayo, we'll see. From what I understand, he doesn't really have any desire to go back into coaching for a while. We'll see what ends up happening. Maybe he needs a year or two to cool off a little bit. Tough situation, and then he regroups.
Wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them do. One more thing I want to talk about. Talked about just about everything, but the Red Sox saw them play the Twins yesterday in Fort Myers. Alex Bregman, your new third baseman, went 0 for 3 against Pablo Lopez, but it's only spring training. But wouldn't feel too bad about it because nobody does well against Pablo Lopez. Pablo Lopez is a strikeout machine. He
Yeah.
had 8 Ks yesterday, albeit gave up 4 runs. What are your thoughts about the Red Sox chances, and how do you like the addition of Alex Bregman?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned in that they don't really know, or they didn't really have it thought out what they want to do with him and with Rafael Devers.
Right.
They obviously, if Bregman ends up playing second base, can he play there? Is it fair to ask a guy with his credentials at third base to move? Is Devers going to be a problem if you make him a DH or
Right.
try to move him out of position? So whether they're good pieces, whether they fit together remains to be seen. But I like their pitching additions. I like the fact that they went out and got a good player, a good hitter, and added a hitter to their lineup if they can figure out how to make it work. And the division, I think, is available. Baltimore's window, I think, may be closing. I would look for them to bounce back a little bit and have a good year again. They have probably the best young roster in the division. But
Right.
the Yankees are struggling now. They lost Soto to free agency. It looks
Right.
like who knows if Stanton's going to play at all.
Right.
They've got a lot of older question marks in their lineup. Now Cole is out, and
Right.
their pitching is kind of very much. I don't want to say it's a mess, but there are a lot of question marks there. So it would not surprise me if the Red Sox made a big move in the division up into wild card territory, or maybe even challenge to win it. I think they've clearly gotten better, whereas the other teams in the division, not so much.
Well, the Yankees are a mash unit. That's what they really are.
Mm.
You already
And they
stated
usually
that.
are, by the way, because they have a lot of older players. So,
Well, that's true. And
You know.
Carlos Stanton, to me, is like Humpty Dumpty. Every time you turn around, he falls off the wall and gets hurt. Great player, don't get me wrong. Had a good career. I don't know if his injury history will get him in the Hall of Fame, but he certainly made a lot of money, regardless of whether he gets in the Hall of Fame.
made a lot of money, and he's got he's got 400 home runs. He could end up hitting 500 easily if he gets back on the field. But what we're hearing about this injury is very, very troubling. I don't know how you injure both elbows. I just don't know. I've never heard anything like that before. So I just don't know how that happens.
Well, don't feel too bad. One year I had to have 2 shoulders operated on the left and the right, so they were both a mess. But at my age, it's different compared to what it is when their age, and they're in much better condition than I'm in.
Yeah.
And Tommy John surgery, you don't mess around with that. The Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah. He obviously did something in the way he swung the bat that caused to get tendonitis in both of his elbows. But if you're swinging the bat and it's starting to hurt, don't you stop? Don't you change? Don't you go back to maybe your old way of hitting? I mean, I don't know. It's like he got healthy in the postseason and he was a house of fire, but he wore out his elbows while he was doing it. I just don't. I'm just perplexed by the whole thing. I've been around baseball a long time. I've covered a lot of injuries of all kinds, but that's a new one on me. I've never heard of anything like that. So I just don't know what to make of it. Is he done? Is he ever going to play again? I don't know what to make of that.
Me either. See what happens, but I think right now I like the Red Sox chances. The Yankees look like a mash unit. I'm not sure about Baltimore. Tampa Bay Rays situation is unfortunately a mess that we can get into that another day because of the stadium situation.
Yeah.
Playing at George Steinbrenner Field, and unfortunately they were victims of the hurricane. But they found a way to be competitive despite the low budget that they've had. And Toronto is in flux, so we don't know what's going to happen with Vlad Guerrero Jr. So great having you on tonight, Tom. It's really been great talking all kinds of stuff. I look forward to us being able to pull this thing off with Coach Jim Calhoun and being able to promote his book. But the one thing I've enjoyed about going to NSMA from time to time when I can get up there is having an opportunity to meet people like you that, are colleagues that I can bring on and understand the validity and how important it really is for us as colleagues to work together and promote each other's platforms. And you've been nothing short of outstanding. I'm so glad that we were able to swing this on a night. And I told you when I brought it up here, I want to bring you on after the brackets were released. You know, why it worked out so well. We had Yale, both men's basketball and women's basketball talk about, and we were able to slip in some WNBA, talk about a show that we were able to cover a lot of different bases. You definitely hit the jackpot, and again, I enjoyed our time hanging out. I look forward to us being friends for a long, long time, and it was great seeing you then. It's great having you on tonight, and any opportunity we get to come on, I would more than welcome you back anytime you want to come on.
Great, Scott. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And
well, so before we go, though, we're going to bring Candy Ameling on for one more station break. Then you're going to let everybody know how they get all the. How does that sound? Okay.
Okay, you got it.
All right, Candy, station break.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. It's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our merchandise store and a plethora of great content. Go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You hit that red subscribe button, share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what we're going to talk about, except we do talk hockey on Thursday nights as well. And then there's this show, the Motor City Madmouth Show, which is a one-on-one interview show. You never know where it's going to pop up. Hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. If you want to be a guest, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to sponsor or advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. All right, Don, this is the time where you get to promote yourself. So please let everybody know how they can get a hold of you as well. The floor is yours. Take it as long as you want, Dom. I want everybody to know about Dom Amore, my colleague out in Connecticut, and I look forward to seeing you when I get up there. Maybe you can show me around a little bit.
All right. Well, you could follow me on X at Amore Current. You could follow me at that same address on Blue Sky. You could follow me in those two places. I post all my work there. But I would really love you to go to current.com and subscribe for a period of time, and then you can read my stuff every day. So that's current.com is where you could find me if you're down in Florida. And meantime, I hope to get back to my old stomping grounds on the Yankee Beat, Tampa, if Yukon women cooperate and get me down there, and go check out some of my old haunts in that town. Love that town. So hopefully we'll be seeing you soon, Scott, and talking again.
Well, listen, I'm wearing your South Florida shirt. I live in South Florida, but I have Tampa blood. And my brother said, you have a lot of different hometowns, and Tampa is one of your hometowns. I'll be going there as well. Don, if you ever get into Tampa, please let me know, and I'll show you a good steakhouse out there that we can hang out with. How does that sound?
I've probably been there.
Not really. You ever been to the Black Rock Bar and Grill up on Dale Mabry Highway near Fletcher?
I'll tell you what, that might be the only place on Dale Mabry I've missed. But yeah, maybe we'll check it out.
Well, then guess what? When we're there, I'm going to take you there. Now that you mentioned, I know you've probably been to Burns. You know, I've been to this place. This place is a different animal. It really is. So you get down to Tampa.
I've been to all those places. All right, great.
Yeah, you Scott, let me know. So meanwhile, thanks again, Don, for joining us. Motor City Madmouth Show. Thank you, Don Amore, for coming on the program tonight. Meanwhile, at the top of the hour, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows us. Don, thank you very much, and let's stay in touch. And I look forward to doing more projects with you. Now you got me excited about Jim Calhoun. So look forward to having the three out to promote your book. All right, Don?
All right, you got it, Scott. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Yeah.